I'm Ken Winston. I'm with the Nebraska Sierra Club, and the Nebraska Sierra Club is also here to stand in to join with the people who are all across the country today are remembering what happened in Michigan 2 years ago today and honoring the victims of that disaster. And as Ben said, that sent more than 1 million gallons of tar sands oil into the Kalamazoo River. And it's cost, well, at least $725 million so far to clean up. And as Ben indicated, it hasn't been cleaned up yet. The cleanup process is still going on. The best thing that we can do in remembering this disaster is to do everything that we can to prevent another disaster like this from happening. The NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, was highly critical of the process that allowed this to happen. They spoke of lax regulations and incompetence that led up to the spill. They compared it to the Keystone Cops, and they called it a situation where the fox was guarding the henhouse. Unfortunately, the people of Nebraska are facing a situation similar to the kind of situation that the people of Michigan faced. There are no legal standards to protect our land and water from oil pipelines. Instead, our officials have given the keys to the henhouse to a foreign and transient corporation whose interests are profits in sending oil to China. In the midst of record-breaking heat and drought, Nebraskans are becoming more and more aware of the value of our water, both for human survival and for agriculture. We have the largest source of fresh water in the North American continent, yet we have no standards to protect it from tar sands pipelines. And today, as Ben mentioned, right now as we speak, people are fighting wildfires in an area very close to where the pipeline is being proposed to go. And we're reminded of how fragile the things are that sustain life and how easily they can be damaged. We cannot risk our resources to those who have no stake in protecting them. So who is protecting our resources? Well, how about the legislature? Well, they passed the buck to the governor. They handed the approval authority to the governor. But they included no standards. There's no standards for the governor to decide whether a pipeline is to be approved or not approved. And the governor has said that he wants the pipeline built as soon as possible. So how is he able to make an objective determination? The DEQ is asking some of the right questions, mostly because people like the people standing behind me are raising those questions, but they're insisting that they have no authority to enforce them. So who is running the show? Well, it looks like TransCanada is running the show. They spent $600,000 lobbying the legislature last year to make sure that legislation got passed that applied only to them and had no standards for protecting our resources. They made sure that there was nothing legally binding that would enforce their promises to avoid the sandhills. Only the press statements of foreign officials from foreign corporations. And TransCanada has a long record of changing their stories to win political favor. And I think that would be the subject of another press conference. It would probably take about an hour to run through all of those things. But here, I'll just raise a couple of them. At one point, they had officials before the Nebraska legislature saying that they would not use eminent domain against Nebraska landowners. 60 days later, actually less than 60 days later, they sent letters to Nebraska landowners saying that they were going to use eminent domain. Then, for 3 years, they said that they couldn't change the route of the pipeline. It was impossible. They had to stick with the route that they had. And suddenly, within a 3-day period of time, they suddenly agreed to change the route. But once again, there's nothing that enforces the requirement for them to protect any of our resources, to actually avoid the sandhills. And the criteria that they're using to define the sandhills are based upon a map that they conveniently picked out. And it defies the logic to tell people that areas that they're running their pipeline through are not the sandhills, when we have photographs that show it clearly is the sandhills, and the objective statements of people who've lived there their entire lives. The bottom line is that Nebraskans must continue to fight to protect the things that they care about. Those include our life-giving water, our fragile sandhills, and the resources we need for our nation and for our children's future. As horrible a tragedy as the Kalamazoo spill is, it would be an even greater tragedy if we allowed it to occur again in our state. Thank you.